Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online, news that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Anthony Morano. This month, we celebrate Black History Month, a time for honoring the contributions and sacrifices that African Americans have made in our country. Joining us now for a discussion about this month and its significance is Dr. Bobbie Green, president of the Doña Ana County NAACP. Dr. Green, thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Anthony, and happy Black History Month.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on Newsmakers. I'd like to start off, can you provide us a little bit of history about this month?
Well, Black History Month originally started Carter Woodson, who's a famous author, orator, public speaker, was born in 1926. And he was the first one to recommend Black History Week in celebration and in honor of President Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Frederick Douglass's birthday, both born in February. And so Black History Week was established. Later on, President Gerald Ford decided that it should be Black History Month in order to recognize those who were not typically recognized in our history.
Now, we have a lot of exciting events happening this month in our area. Can you share with us a little bit about what's happening?
I am proud of the schedule of events we have this year. We have a brand new director of NMSU Black Programs, Mr. Cecil Rose, and we have been working closely with him to come up with some wonderful events that will not only entertain, but also educate. We think it's very important to educate. So one of the things that I'm very proud of is we have a display at the Zool Library of books by African American authors. Think and Grow Rich is one of those books. I recommended Caste, The Origins, by Isabel Wilkerson, which is now being made into a movie by Ava DuVernay, I think that's how you pronounce her name. And then also the 1619 Project by Dr. Nicole Hannah-Jones. I think it's important to educate our young people. We don't get a lot of Black history education in our schools. As a young person, I didn't get that education. But it doesn't have to stay that way. So we're going to try to do our part to educate our young students, not just Black students, but all students. I think Black history is American history.
How you bring up a very interesting point and perspective talking about Black history and American history. Do you think that American history is segregated?
Well, you know, actually I do think it is segregated, not as much as it used to be, and it's getting better all the time, partially because we have so much social media. We've got the internet, we've got all kinds of Black publications. I grew up reading Ebony magazine and Jet magazine. My mother had subscriptions to those, so we would receive those, and that's where I got a lot of social information about Black history. The story of Emmett Till was, the photo of Emmett Till was published in Jet magazine. And so that kind of information, which you did not necessarily see in the mainstream media, was published in Black-owned magazines. So we got a lot of information from Black-owned magazines. Even now I watch BET, I watch the Griot. So there's a lot of information available to us, and of course the internet is, you know, you've got all that information at your fingertips, which is what I call, it has leveled the playing field.
Technology obviously
Yes.
Provides that opportunity where we can follow perhaps professors or teachers of Black history to learn more, the truth about what really happened in our history.
The truth is what will set you free. That's what the Bible says.
Yeah.
And I think that the truth is something that we should all strive to attain. Even if it's a painful truth, it can be used as a tool to educate so that we don't repeat the problems of the past, the mistakes of the past. And I think that our young people who are fortunate to live in this generation where they've grown up with the internet, they've grown up with cell phones and social media at their fingertips, so they have never seen the world without it, and that is to their benefit. But also that should be a tool that we can use, a vehicle that we can use to teach our young people.
How can Black History Month serve as an opportunity for us to elevate the conversation of history in general in the United States? We've seen a lot of pushback about teaching history in a diverse way that shares our diverse history that we have here in the United States. So how can this month serve as an opportunity for us to perhaps provide more understanding and enlighten folks about what really has happened in our country and what continues to happen for a lot of folks?
We are looking again for an opportunity to educate, not in a threatening way and not in an angry way, but just in an informative way. We're bringing in Dr. Justin Ballinger, who is an educator, he's focused on science, technology, education, and math. We're bringing him in. He's from Morehouse, which is a historically Black college and university, and he's going to do a meet and greet at the Zool Library on February 29th. So we're looking forward to having him come in. He's very well known, and he speaks to the shortage of male educators in STEM courses. I am a STEM educator, so that is a passion of mine. I want to see more young women and men of color who are going into the science, technology, engineering, and math disciplines, because that will help reduce the income gap. The income gap right now for African Americans is about 4 to 1. And so part of that is that we had a slow start. We didn't have the right, it wasn't a level playing field. It's still not a level playing field, to be honest with you, but it's getting better. And the way to level that playing field and to bridge that gap is to educate our young people. I am a first generation student, college student, the very first in my family to get a degree. And there are many young people on this campus, even right now, who are first generation. And so they don't have the benefit of the parents who got that Harvard education or the inheritance of a wealthy family. Most first generation students don't have that.
I always found it interesting too, just navigating that process when you're talking about college and you're planning on going to college, filling out applications for college, thinking about financial aid and learning how to navigate that, noticing if folks have already done that before, it's a lot easier for parents who have done that to sit down and have those conversations with their kids and help them navigate. But for parents who may not have went to college, or students whose parents did not go to college, this can be a really intimidating thing.
The FAFSA is not for the faint of heart. It is challenging and daunting for the best of us, and for those who have no idea what a FAFSA is, financial aid, why do you need it, why do you fill it out, all of those things, that puts students at a disadvantage right out of the gate. And so those, the mentoring, the providing information, tutoring, and advisors that can relate to young people of color. I didn't have any Black teachers to speak of. You can count them on one hand. You can count them on 3 fingers, actually. in my whole college career, in my whole K through 12 and college career. And so I didn't have people that looked like me in positions to teachers, advisors, and what have you, principals. But there are some, and so we are celebrating those firsts. You know, the first African American female principal, Doris Hamilton, we're celebrating her. We're celebrating Dr. McKinley Boston, who was the first athletic director, African American athletic director here at NMSU. We are celebrating Anita Skipper, who was the first WNBA star to graduate from NMSU and who is now the public information officer for the Doña Ana County offices. So there are some firsts, and those firsts I think need to be celebrated. Our students need to understand that, yes, there are some that have come before you. Clarabelle Williams, for example, came before many of the students. She paved a trail for me and allowed me an opportunity to come to teach here, not only to come to school here, but to be a faculty member here, because she stood outside the doors even when they told her it was not legal for her to come in the classroom, and yet she still got her education. There are many firsts that we need to recognize and that our young people need to understand. I tell my students when they don't come to class, I said, well, at least you have a seat in the classroom. Clarabelle Williams came to class, got a degree as the first African American student here, and she couldn't even go in the classroom. So you have no reason, no excuses not to come to class.
So, imagine attendance. Yeah. I'd like to know how attendance went after that.
Well,
conversation.
Some took it to heart, you know, and but the point is, there is a message there that should resonate with students.
Celebrating the first recognition of NMSU and New Mexico African American First. That's happening Thursday, February 22nd at 11 a.m. at the Villanueva Victory Club in the Fulton Center on the third floor.
Fulton Center, third floor. It is open to the public, but you do need to RSVP and let us know that you are planning to attend. Dr. McKinley Boston, this will be his first time returning to campus since he left. So we're looking forward to having him back.
Very exciting. Also the community meet and greet for Dr. Justin Ballinger.
Ballinger, yes. We are looking forward to that. He is a very impressive educator, and he's very highly sought after. So a meet and greet with him. I personally have an interest in talking to him because we share a passion for STEM topics, which I hope to cultivate and establish some networking opportunities and relationships with him.
I want to move on and talk about, you know, a little bit more just about this time in 2024. We're seeing efforts across the country about repressing history in the U.S., whether it's Black history, Hispanic history, many different histories. What are your thoughts on this moment right now as we move forward in 2024 in order to preserve history?
There are those who would want to, I will put it in quotes, make America great again. And to me, that's a dog whistle, a very loud dog whistle, because if we look back at our history, that is not something that we would want to go back to. I did watch the Supreme Court arguments yesterday about whether or not the current candidate should be on the ballot. And I watched Ketanji Brown Jackson. I watched Elena Kagan. I watched Sonia Sotomayor. I watched Clarence Thomas. And so the diversity on the court, what I found very striking, and it gave me some optimism. But the nature of the argument and the topic that we were discussing was very troubling. And the political landscape is somewhat troubling right now. And I think that one of the problems we have is a direct result of those who would want to push us backwards and ignore our history and keep it out of the classrooms. The critical race theory is such a, it's a scary topic for some. It should not be. It is simply a way to talk about why there are so many income disparities and why there are such differences. It's not meant to be a threat, and it shouldn't be perceived as a threat, but the narrative is such that it comes across as threatening for certain people, not for others. And so when you have a situation where some people have the benefit and some don't, it makes for a distinct disadvantage for those who don't, those who are underrepresented traditionally, and it's just, it's 2024. So it is time really to make it about, like Dr. King said, the content of our character and not the color of our skin. It should never be about the color of a person's skin. It should just simply be, are you qualified? Do you have the character? Are you a decent human being?
Civil rights, when this month we certainly pay tribute to many and honor many folks who took steps to make the United States a more inclusive place, whether it's in education, whether it's with voting, and many other achievements. When you think of civil rights in 2024, what do you think about?
Well, I read it just today. The income inequality is, like I said, about 6 to 1. And so that's problematic. I guess it's good for those who are in the 6, at the top 6, but those who are in the 1, it's a problem. I look at the demographics of mass incarceration in the school to prison pipeline, which is one of my passions, is to try to eliminate that school to prison pipeline. I know right now I'm working on some cases of young men who have been accused of very serious crimes and are facing, instead of going to college, they're facing prison sentences, which breaks my heart. I think that even the recidivism rate is problematic, and it makes for a very difficult time when you have a young man who is in his teens and now he's got a prison record, comes out of prison, what options are available to him. It's very difficult.
Why are we not talking about that enough when we're talking about public safety? We're having this big conversation about public safety in New Mexico. Why do you think recidivism isn't talked about enough?
Well, to me it is a public safety issue, because if you have some opportunities, some programs, social programs, mental health programs that can help reduce the recidivism rate, that's a benefit to all of us as taxpayers. And if you try to increase the education of our young people, reduce the crime rate, that is also a benefit and a public safety benefit for all of us. So there's some, if you look at the bigger picture, I heard Barack Obama speak one time, and he talked about the $80 billion that we spend on prisons in the United States every year. And he said, oh my God, what could I do if I had that $80 billion to spend on education, infrastructure, and things that are good for all of us, and it makes perfect sense. You spend more money on the things that are going to be mutually beneficial, then you don't have to spend so much taxpayer money on prison systems, especially privatized prisons, which is a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, we
and
can
another
dedicate
problem.
a whole program to that, I think, with that discussion. I want to talk with you about the impact the black press has had in the United States for over a century. Mm-hmm. And can you share a little insight with us just about how strong of an impact that has had? And we're in a time where newspapers are in a challenging industry right now. It's a challenging industry, but the impact that the black press has had historically, how can we think about that?
Well, from my perspective, as a child, my mother took us to the beauty salon, the one black beauty salon in Las Cruces. And in that beauty salon, you would see the magazines, the Jet magazines, the Ebony magazines, and some black-owned magazines. And that's pretty much, unless you had a subscription, that's pretty much the only place you saw those magazines. However, for black families, it was that's where we relied upon some of our information to come from. I remember television. We had very limited choices when I was growing up, and you didn't see a lot of black actors on television. But now you do, because you have production companies. You got Tyler Perry, who's coming to Las Cruces to do a film here. I'm very excited about that. And you have some very prolific black producers, black authors, and black media that makes things better for people of color who will gravitate, of course, to their own music, their own literature, their own movies and television shows, just like everybody else. It is a business for a lot of black entrepreneurs right now. And so I think it's important that we have a way to get information that we may not get from the mainstream.
That's actually the theme, one of tying into the theme of this year, African Americans and the arts.
Yes.
Such a big legacy and such an impactful legacy on our culture today, and not only in our country but around the world. When you think of that theme, what are some thoughts that you think of?
Well, I think about the late, great Harry Belafonte, for example, who was extremely talented musician, an actor, a speaker, and there were several like him. Dr. King was one of the greatest orators of our time. It's hard to find a speech that didn't bring you to your knees and bring you to tears. I listened to him regularly, especially in January when it's Martin Luther King Day and we're celebrating. So I listened to his speeches. It's amazing. It's as if time stood still, because some of the things he said back in the 60s are still so relevant today. And the good news is that you can watch MSNBC, for example, or CNN, and you see people that look like me in front of the cameras, behind the cameras. You see contributors who are writers who write the Ta-Nehisi Coates of the world, and the Charles Blow, who's an incredible writer for the New York Times. So there are a lot of talented, very gifted artists and entertainers who are very well educated, brilliant, and get an opportunity now that was not made available, back 50 years ago.
What are some things we can do to celebrate Black history every month throughout the year, not just in February?
Well, I think it is important to just know that Black people in this country are just people, that we have families that we love, and we have career aspirations. We're raising children, and I have nieces and nephews. I have a 10-year-old niece who's a singer, and she sings all the time. She grew up, she was a baby. She started singing as a baby, and so did I. And so there are some things that are just normal. And I think that we should look at it as, we're having conversation with a friend, not having a conversation with a Black friend, but just a friend, somebody that is, maybe looks different, but we still have the same dreams. We still have the same concerns about our families. We still have the same enjoyment of entertainment. And two excellent quarterbacks. I'm looking forward to it. I had my picks, and neither one of them made the Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes is incredible, and so is Brock.
Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
correct,
Brock
with
Purdy.
the San Francisco
So you've
49ers,
got, and then Usher's going to do the halftime show. It's going to be a wonderful afternoon.
Well, it's with these events that are planned, it sounds like it's going to be a wonderful month as well. Dr. Bobbie Green, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back. That's our time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition, 5 to 9, Fresh Air at 11, followed by Here and Now, noon to 2, and All Things Considered, 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd like to hear from you. You can email us with story ideas. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Anthony Moreno. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.